Welcome to Life Stories. In today's tale, we follow the journey of Mia, a young woman struggling to make ends meet, who offers her last meal to a stranger in need. Little does she know, this simple act of kindness will change her life forever. As Mia navigates the challenges of a new job in a high-powered company, she must face betrayal, personal doubts, and a fight for her future. Will she rise above the obstacles? Or will the forces around her tear her down? Stay tuned to find out. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to start today's story. It was a late afternoon, and the sun had just begun to dip beneath the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow over the bustling streets of the city. I had been walking for what felt like hours, the weight of the world on my shoulders. There were no grand dreams for me, only survival. Making sure my younger brother, Tyler, had enough to eat, and that we would somehow make it through another day. The weight of our situation, our poverty, pressed heavily on my chest. I was tired of struggling. Tired of the ache in my stomach from the hunger that had become a constant companion. The small nylon bag I clutched in my hand contained my last meal for the day, 2 small wraps of fufu and a thin bowl of watery soup. It wasn't much, but it was all I had. My stomach growled, but I pushed the hunger aside. Tyler was waiting at home. He was only 12, and I could already see that he was learning to suppress his own hunger, pretending to be fine when all he wanted was food. I had become adept at hiding my own hunger too. For his sake, as I walked past the roadside stalls, the smell of roasted corn and fried AARA teased my senses. It was tempting, but I couldn't afford it. The money I had left was just enough to get me home. And I couldn't let Tyler go without food tonight. I walked faster, trying to keep my focus, when something caught my eye. Just as I turned the corner toward the narrow street where our tiny apartment stood, I noticed a man sitting on the pavement. He looked worn, his clothes dusty and torn, his face pale and tired, his eyes deep with exhaustion. I could see his hands tremble as he tried to sit up. Most people walked right past him, ignoring his presence, as though he were just another casualty of the city's unrelenting grind. But something about him made me stop. Maybe it was the desperation in his eyes, or the way he seemed to be on the verge of collapse. But I couldn't walk away. I approached him hesitantly. "Excuse me, sir," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Are you okay?" The man lifted his head slowly, his eyes meeting mine. I felt a strange, unexplainable connection in that moment. His gaze was heavy, weary, but there was something else there, a silent story. One that I couldn't understand but could feel in the air between us. "I haven't eaten all day," he said in a low voice, barely audible. "Please, do you have anything to spare?" I swallowed hard. My stomach was screaming for food, but I couldn't turn away. I looked down at the small bag in my hand. It wasn't much, but it was all I had. I had promised myself that I would never let hunger defeat me. But in that moment, I realized that sometimes, the only thing that could ease the pain of hunger was kindness. Without thinking, I knelt down beside him and opened the bag. "Here," I said, handing him the food. "It's not much, but please eat." He hesitated, his eyes scanning the contents of the bag before meeting mine again. "Are you sure?" he asked. "You look like you need it yourself." I forced a smile, even though my heart ached with hunger. "Don't worry about me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'll be fine." With a grateful nod, he took the food and began eating slowly, savoring each bite. I watched him, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and a twinge of hunger. As I watched him eat, I realized something. This simple act of kindness, giving away the last of what I had, felt right. Even though it meant I would go to bed hungry tonight. "What's your name?" I asked after a while. Breaking the silence, he looked up at me, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "Jackson," he replied softly. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you." I chuckled, shaking my head. "No need to repay me," I said. "Just take care of yourself." I stood up, brushing the dust off my skirt, and turned to leave, but just as I took a step, I heard him call out. "Wait," he said, his voice stopping me in my tracks. I turned back to face him. "What's your name?" he asked. "Mia," I replied, surprised by his sudden interest. Jackson nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "Mia, I won't forget what you did today." I smiled softly. "It's nothing," I said, though I couldn't help but feel that this was more than nothing. It was a moment of humanity. A reminder that kindness still existed in the world, even in the most unlikely places. With that, I turned and walked away, the feeling of his gratitude lingering in my chest. As I walked home, I tried to ignore the hunger gnawing at me. Tyler was waiting, and I had nothing left to offer him. But something had changed in me. In that fleeting moment, I had given away the last of what I had. And it didn't feel like loss. It felt like a choice, one that would stay with me forever. Little did I know, the man I had just helped wasn't just another stranger on the street. Jackson was no ordinary man. He was one of the wealthiest in the city. And my simple act of kindness would change my life in ways I couldn't even begin to imagine. But that was a story for another day. For now, all I could think about was getting home to Tyler and figuring out how I would make the next day better than the one before. The next morning, I woke up early, determined to find a way to make sure Tyler wouldn't go hungry again today. As always, the small apartment was dimly lit by the weak morning sunlight. Tyler was still asleep, his small form curled up on the thin mattress we shared. I glanced around the room, trying to gather my thoughts. The walls were cracked, the furniture old and worn. But I didn't mind. It was home, and I had to make it work. I quietly stepped into the tiny kitchen, hoping to find something, anything, to offer Tyler. The cupboards were bare except for a few stale biscuits I had saved for emergencies. I sighed, frustrated, and ran my fingers through my hair. I didn't know how long I could keep pretending everything was fine. Tyler deserved better, and I didn't know how much longer I could hold on. Just then, there was a knock at the door. I froze. Visitors were rare in our neighborhood, and I had no idea who could be at our doorstep. I exchanged a quick look with Tyler, who was now sitting up, his eyes wide with curiosity. "Who's that?" he whispered. I stood still for a moment, my heart pounding. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the thought of strangers showing up at our door made me uneasy. Still, I couldn't ignore it. I walked cautiously to the door, my hand trembling as I turned the handle. When I opened it, I was surprised to see him standing there, Jackson, the man I had given my last meal to the night before. His clothes were different this time, crisp and well-tailored. He looked more refined, more like someone who belonged in a world far removed from mine. "Mia," he said with a smile that, for a moment, made me forget all about the hunger gnawing at my stomach. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." I blinked, momentarily speechless. "Jackson, what are you doing here?" He looked at me with a seriousness that made my heart race. "I've been thinking about what you did for me yesterday. I won't forget it." He paused for a moment before continuing. "I want to offer you something, Mia, something that could change your life." I stared at him, confused. "Change my life? How?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Jackson stepped forward, lowering his voice so Tyler couldn't hear. "I own a business, a company, and I need someone who is honest, hardworking, and kind-hearted, someone who sees the world differently. I think you could be that person." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The man I had shared my last meal with was offering me a job? Me, who had never stepped foot in an office, who had no experience, no education in anything related to business? My mind raced as I tried to understand his words. "I don't know anything about office work," I said, my voice filled with doubt. "I've never even been to a proper job interview before. I don't have the right qualifications." Jackson smiled gently, his eyes warm. "That's not what I'm looking for, Mia. I've seen something in you that most people would miss. I can teach you everything you need to know. What I need is someone who has the heart. Someone who understands what it means to struggle, to work for what they need. You've already proven that to me." I felt my chest tighten as his words sank in. I couldn't deny the opportunity he was offering. It was everything I had ever dreamed of: stability, a chance to stop struggling, But at the same time, I couldn't help but feel that it was too good to be true. People didn't just come into your life and offer you everything you needed without expecting something in return. Right? I don't know if I can, I said softly, my voice shaking. I've been on my own for so long. I'm scared of depending on someone else. Jackson nodded, understanding. I get it. Trust doesn't come easily when you've been through what you've been through. But think about it, Mia. This isn't about charity. This is about an opportunity. A real chance for you to build a future. For you and Tyler. I looked at Tyler, who was watching the exchange with wide, hopeful eyes. For the first time in a long while, I saw a glimmer of hope in his face. A hope that we could have something better. And just for a moment, I let myself believe it too. I took a deep breath. And without fully understanding why, I made a decision. Okay, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll do it. I'll take the opportunity. Jackson smiled, a genuine warmth in his expression. You won't regret it, Mia, I promise. As he turned to leave, I stood there, my heart still racing. I didn't know what the future held. But in that moment, I knew one thing for certain. My life was about to change. And I was both terrified and excited to see where it would take me. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of both excitement and fear. The day ahead felt like a world of possibilities. But at the same time, it was unfamiliar, and I couldn't help but wonder what I was getting myself into. Jackson's offer had been too good to be true. And though I had accepted it, doubt still crept into my mind. Tyler was already up, his face filled with anticipation. He seemed to sense that something had changed. That something was different today. Sister, are you going to work now? He asked. His voice tinged with hope. I forced a smile, despite the nervous knot in my stomach. Yes, I'm going to work today. Let's hope things go well. I got dressed in the best clothes I had, an old but clean dress, and made my way to the office. As I entered the building, the contrast between the polished marble floors, the sleek glass walls, and the bustling professionals around me hit me like a wave. I felt out of place, as though I didn't belong here. My heart raced in my chest, and I fought the overwhelming urge to turn around and leave. But I couldn't, not now, not after all I had promised Tyler. I took a deep breath and walked in, doing my best to hold my head high. Inside, I was greeted by Evelyn, Jackson's assistant. She didn't seem to notice me much at first, her eyes scanning me up and down, as if assessing whether I fit in here. Her gaze was sharp, but she smiled politely enough. Mia, I assume, she said, her tone cool. I'm Evelyn, let me show you to your desk. As I followed her down the hallway, my nerves intensified, every step felt heavier, and the chatter of the office seemed to echo around me. A constant reminder that I was an outsider. Evelyn's presence made me uneasy, though I couldn't place why. There was something about her that felt off, like she didn't truly want me there. We reached my desk, a small, neat space in the corner of the office. This is where you'll be working, Evelyn said, her smile tight. Your duties will include organizing documents, handling schedules, and doing whatever else Jackson might need. You'll be trained, of course. But I expect you to keep up. Got it? I nodded, unsure of how to respond. I was still trying to wrap my mind around everything. But despite the pressure, I was determined to make it work. I sat down at my desk, trying to focus on the task at hand. As the hours passed, I buried myself in the work, sorting papers, answering phones, managing the occasional request. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. Yet, no matter how hard I worked, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Evelyn's presence in the office was stifling. She would watch me from her desk, always with that calculating look in her eyes. The way she would walk past, glancing at my work with barely disguised disdain, made me feel like I was constantly being judged. The tension in the office grew, and the longer I worked there, the more I began to feel it. Despite my best efforts, I could feel the eyes on me, the whispers when I wasn't around. It wasn't long before I overheard a conversation between two colleagues. Who is she? One of them asked. Where did Jackson find her? She's the one who helped him, right? The other replied. But do you really think she belongs here? I don't know, it just feels off. I tried to ignore their words. But they stung. I didn't belong here. I wasn't qualified for this job. I had no idea what I was doing. But I couldn't let myself give up, not now. Not after everything I had sacrificed to get here. That evening, after my first full day at work, I returned home feeling drained. Tyler was already sitting at the table, eagerly awaiting me. Did you have a good day, sister? He asked, his eyes wide with excitement. I forced a smile, though the weight of my day still lingered. It was fine, I'll get the hang of it. But as I tried to relax, I couldn't shake the unease I felt. Evelyn's subtle hostility, the whispers in the office, the feeling that I was walking a tightrope. I knew something was coming. And I didn't know if I was ready for it. That night, as I lay in bed, the uncertainty gnawed at me. Could I really handle this? Could I prove to Jackson, to myself, and to Tyler that I was worthy of this chance? The answer wasn't clear, but one thing was certain. I had to keep going. The stakes were too high for me to quit now. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I was determined to face it head on. And no matter what, I would make sure Tyler never had to go to bed hungry again. The days passed in a blur of work, each one blending into the next as I navigated my new life at Jackson's company. The office became both a sanctuary and a battlefield, an unfamiliar place where I struggled to find my footing while also clinging to the glimmer of hope that this could be the turning point I had been waiting for. But as the days turned into weeks, the pressure only seemed to mount. Evelyn's cold demeanor never softened. She would often give me sharp, judgmental glances, her silent criticism cutting deeper with every passing day. At first, I tried to ignore it, focusing only on the tasks in front of me. But slowly, the tension between us grew. I began to notice the little things, the way she seemed to go out of her way to correct me when I made even the smallest mistake. Or how she subtly undermined my confidence when Jackson wasn't around. Despite the challenges, I pressed on, determined to prove myself. I worked late into the evenings, learning everything I could, picking up new skills. But no matter how hard I worked, I couldn't shake the feeling that Evelyn was actively trying to sabotage me. Her words were sharp, her actions deliberate. She would hover over me, watching my every move, her eyes sharp with suspicion. Then, one day, the tension reached its boiling point. I was sitting at my desk, organizing some files when I overheard a conversation between Evelyn and one of the senior employees. "She's just not cut out for this job," Evelyn was saying, her voice low but laced with venom. "She doesn't have what it takes. Jackson won't realize it until it's too late." The words stung, but what hurt more was the realization that Evelyn had been scheming behind my back from the very beginning. It was as though she had never wanted me there at all. A wave of frustration washed over me. How had I let myself fall into this trap? How could I have been so blind to her manipulations? But as angry as I was, I knew I couldn't afford to confront her just yet. I had to be smart. I had to gather evidence. Find a way to expose her before it was too late. That evening, I spoke to Tyler about what had been happening. I didn't want to burden him with my worries. But I needed someone to talk to. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," I confessed, my voice shaky. "Evelyn's been making things so difficult for me. I'm afraid Jackson's going to believe her." Tyler looked at me, his eyes filled with concern. "Sister, you're strong. You've made it this far. And you can keep going. Don't let her bring you down." I smiled at him, grateful for his words, but deep down, doubt still lingered. Could I really trust Jackson? Could he see through Evelyn's lies? The next day, I gathered my courage and decided to confront Jackson. He had been so kind to me, offering me this opportunity, and I needed to make sure he knew the truth. I waited until the office had quieted down, then went to his office. He looked up as I knocked on the door, his expression kind but distant. "Mia, what's on your mind?" he asked, gesturing for me to sit. I hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Jackson, I need to tell you something. It's about Evelyn." My voice faltered, But I pressed on. She's been undermining me. I overheard her talking about how I'm not good enough for the job. She's been making it harder for me. And I'm afraid she's going to make you believe that I don't belong here. Jackson's expression softened as he listened. But there was something in his eyes that made me pause. I couldn't quite place it. But it felt like he was processing everything I was saying with a calm, calculating thoughtfulness. I see, he said quietly, leaning back in his chair. Mia, I appreciate your honesty, but I need you to understand something. He paused, his gaze never leaving mine. I trust you. I saw something in you from the moment we met. And I won't let anyone, Evelyn included, make me doubt that. I felt a rush of relief. But it was quickly replaced by confusion. If Jackson truly trusted me, why had he allowed Evelyn to have so much control in the office? Before I could speak again, Jackson continued, I'm going to keep an eye on this. But I need you to focus on your work and not let Evelyn distract you. She may have been here longer, but I see potential in you that I don't see in her. A wave of gratitude washed over me, but my mind was still racing. Could it really be that easy? Could I trust Jackson as much as I had wanted to? The next day, I arrived at work early, determined to focus and prove Jackson right. But as I sat at my desk, I felt a strange tension in the air. Evelyn had been quiet all morning, but I knew she was watching me. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was planning something. Then, just as I was about to leave for the day, I received a message from Jackson. Mia, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you come to my office? My heart skipped a beat. Was this it? Was he finally going to believe me? Or was this the moment where everything I had worked for would come crashing down? I stood up, my hands trembling as I walked toward his office. It was time to face whatever was coming next. As I entered Jackson's office, my heart pounded with anticipation. He was standing by the window, staring out at the city, deep in thought. When he turned to face me, I could see the seriousness in his eyes. Mia, he began, his voice calm but firm. I've been looking into everything. And I want to say that I believe in you. You've shown me more than just hard work. You've shown me integrity. But there's something I need to address. Evelyn, she's been sabotaging your efforts. And I've seen enough to know that this isn't just a misunderstanding. My breath caught in my throat. This was the moment I had been waiting for. Jackson wasn't just listening, he was taking action. I've made the decision to let her go. Jackson continued, you're the person I want by my side in this company. You've earned your place here, Mia, and as for the future, it's yours. A wave of relief washed over me. And for the first time in so long, I allowed myself to feel proud. I had fought for this. For my family, for a chance to build something better. And now, I was finally getting the opportunity to show what I was capable of. As I left his office that day, a new sense of purpose filled me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, and I was ready to take on whatever came next. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to follow new videos of life stories.